Hello, everybody. Good morning. What a day. Look how many people. I want people just to flick over your left shoulder or your right shoulder and just have a look how filled the room is. So, fantastic turnout. Fantastic turnout. And you will be called on to turn out for other things and to show that commitment in other ways, both to Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people and to University of Queensland. But welcome to the University of Queensland if you've travelled here today for the launch of the Reconciliation Action Plan. Also, what do we call that in acronym? The RAP. I'm not asking anyone to sing a rap song, although I might later today if I get a bit excited about it. But not promising I won't, not promising I will. This today is not just the result of a week's work or a month's work or a couple of months' work. It's the result of months and months of work and probably a couple of years of work, really, if we think about people who've been engaged in the reconciliation efforts and starting to think about a reconciliation action plan and then getting to the point of drafting a plan, having workshops with community and students and staff and bringing it all together. And today we also celebrate those individuals who have been part of that past work and also the people that are part of the now work and the people that are part of the future work. So we acknowledge those individuals. For the proceedings today, I'm going to call on Kaja Kerry Charlton to come and join me on the stage to welcome us to country, to her country, and to ground us ahead of what we're about to launch today. I'd like to also welcome the people gathered for the launch of this celebration at the Gatton campus, and I know we're going to flick across to Gatton. So we're flicking to Gatton, folks. Hello, Gatton. Wave to Gatton. And Hurston. So I make mention of Hurston as well. Hi, everybody at Hurston, and we're really pleased that you could join us as well. Fantastic. So they will be having gatherings there, as you saw on the screen, and then afterwards when we share in some hospitality, they will share in hospitality as well. We wanted to make this event as inclusive as possible across the University of Queensland footprint and bring people together under Team UQ. So we're really aiming to do that today. Just before I invite Kaja to the stage, I do want to remind people if there is an emergency situation, please go out of the relevant doors here to the lawn out here. If anybody needs to use other facilities around the courtyard or the Great Court, just go into the Forgan Smith building in front of me or behind you across there. So I now invite Kaja Kerry Charlton, traditional custodian and elder of the Goonpool, Yagara and Gubbi Gubbi peoples of Quandamooka and also Wallagama, North Queensland. Kerry, in terms of her professional interests, or Kaja, people know her as well, includes reconciliation, social justice, community and organisation building, education and cultural heritage in the breadth and wide scope that entails, including language, culture, family and community, history and connections, counselling and social and emotional well-being. A wealth of knowledge, experience and skills which we're proud to say is connected with this university. Welcome, Kaja.
Thank you for that, Bronwyn. And it's a wonderful vision to stand up here and see everybody here who's here for the RAP. It's just significant and it's historical. So before I get into that though, I'd like to say Yawa Yuingan, friendly greetings, and Yawa Yuingan Yumbali, friendly greetings everyone, and Maramba Bayon, good day, because I'm Australian. So I just wanted, first of all, acknowledge the elders here today, and I can see quite a few of them, and that's wonderful. It's wonderful to have our elders here, myself included, of course, but I just remember, you know, in my life as a student going through what was then Brisbane College of Adult Teaching College, actually, I'll just shorten it, but significant historical moments in our lives we don't forget. And, you know, in the wider world, no one forgets where they were when Elvis Presley was announced dead, or Diana, or others. And I think for myself, I equate always going to functions at Musgrave Park and NAIDOCs, and always checking to see which elders were there, you know, and if they'd arrived and if they were at their spot. It was just very important for us because that's part of who we are. And once you do that formality of the greetings and checking in and giving a little update, you've got that wonderful, respectful establishment with people and with country. And not all of them came from this country, but they were still our elders. So I acknowledge that. And I acknowledge our countrymen and women here today from other areas. And I was just talking with somebody, and I thought she was from Inala. I was talking up to her, and I thought she was one of the bells from Inala. But she's from South Australia, so I've got to get a photo with her and take that to tell them her twins here. But it's about connection, and it's about being on country for me, Yuggera country. My granny was, so I'm a Moreton, better known for Stradbroke Island and Brisbane, and Thompson, which is the West Yuggera Ipswich mob, and up around base of the Toowoomba Range. And so I'm honoured to be here because of my role with the RAP, but also that my grannies did work with the university back in the, in the 50s and late 40s with other unis, and they're recorded, and 30s even. And that was when they were incarcerated for decades on missions as well. And through their work and their vision for that better place and sharing and educating, I can see changes that they spoke of being here. And so it's an honour for me on behalf of my Moreton Jandarabin. We are the Ironbark clan of Yuggera Jara, Gurrunpul people. Gurrunpul from Oxley through to the mouth of the Brisbane and across over to parts of the Moreton Bay, Stradbroke Island, and south really, not Moreton Island with our Noogie countrymen and women. So I want to acknowledge the Quandamooka peoples and my Cubby ancestors and my Yuggera ancestors and my Yugam. Some of the family are Yugam, and I have grannies and great-grannies from Waka Waka, and I want to acknowledge those groups, the countries. I can't go into all the clans, that'll take all forever, but certainly honour them and show respect because we all did stick together and there was a lot of connection and reconciliation. I just want to say that in the early days, years ago, I played to death a cassette of a special singer, and he can speak soon. I won't say too many names, but I nearly played that to death and rocked the streets of Redbank Plains, which was full of mostly non-Aboriginal people. So they all knew that voice. But it is historic, and I want to congratulate Peter as in the leadership and everybody who's been involved, and Bronwyn, who I know is going to be a powerhouse with moving things along, and all the staff with the Indigenous unit and all the faculties and schools that have done their piece. I'd like to acknowledge the millions of Jinnah walk this area in this country from many other places, down south, everywhere, for thousands of generations. I'd like to close by saying Nariba Bing, Unyawa Gandiba, Niyaba Ni Maramba, Niyaba Dagos Nya Guris Nya Yuggera country, Yuggera Jara, Mamaragu Nya Tagulawa Nya Dagos Nya Guris Yagan Maramba Dagu Nya Yuggera Jara. May you walk and work and be blessed as you come together and be here and be on Yagara Jara. Be Bulka, welcome, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Gudja Kerry, and not just for your welcome, but your support of the Reconciliation Action Plan efforts. Gudja Kerry is on our Reconciliation Action Plan Committee and a supporter of the university for some time. Thank you, Gudja. I now wish to introduce Kenny Bedford, who's the board member of Reconciliation Australia. I also want to say that Kenny is also a UQ alumnus. Kenny Bedford lives on and represents the remote island of Yerrup, also known as Darnley Island, in the Torres Strait and part of the Torres Strait Islander Authority. He has held the executive position of portfolio member for fisheries since 2008 and is president of the Irib Fisheries Management Association, a member of the Eriblay Traditional Land and Sea Owners Corporation, and sits on the Far North Queensland's Abergarie College Community Consultative Committee. Mr. Bedford completed a Bachelor of Applied Health Science at UQ, and it was over at the Hurston campus. So just a shout out to Hurston again. We know you're all there. And has a Diploma of Youth Welfare received the Vincent Fairfax Fellowship in 2000. And he's also a graduate of what we know as the Australian Rural Leadership Program. Many other accomplishments, and we're really proud and honoured to have Kenny Bedford here with us today. Please join me on the stage, Kenny.
Thank you very much, Professor Fredericks. I acknowledge the Yagara people as the traditional owners of this place, and I thank you for your welcome, Gudja, Kerry Carlton, and I pay my deepest respect to you, to your ancestors and elders, and the custodians of today. I also acknowledge you in your role as co-chair of the RAP Steering Committee. Today I also acknowledge Chancellor Mr. Peter Varghese, our Senate members and Vice-Chancellor Professor Peter Hoyt. Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, it is my absolute pleasure and privilege to be able to represent Reconciliation Australia here today and to do so as an alumnus of our University of Queensland. I'm grateful for your invitation to be here and for this opportunity. Thank you very much. My relationship with Queensland University goes back further than when I studied my applied health science degree. Actually, it's just about on 30 years to the day that I graduated from my secondary boarding school, All Souls and St Gabriel's at Charters Towers. I travelled between there and my island home for school for 6 years. I was Deputy School Captain in 1988 when I graduated, and straight from school I came to Brisbane to study a teaching diploma at the Kelvin Grove College of Advanced Education. That was not long before it amalgamated with QUT. But as part of my chosen study, I had to enrol at and come to Queensland Uni to come here to do Aboriginal studies, to do an Aboriginal studies elective that wasn't offered anywhere else. That's when I received my first formal education about other Aboriginal peoples and their cultures and traditions, and about our black history. From people like Michael Williams and Nancy Williams, one black fellow, one white fellow, and I soaked up their lectures and tutorials like a sponge. Well, I lead and I talk about that story and touch on it as part of a bigger one. Because back in 1989, I followed in the footsteps of a giant. 40 years before me, from the same boarding school, was a Gringy boy. He was a long way from home too, from the Northern Territory. Now, he was a school captain in 1947, and his name was Joe Croft. He's the same Joe Croft who was the first Aboriginal to go to university. And it was here at Queensland University back in that day from where he graduated with an engineering degree. St Joseph's College here at the uni has a scholarship in his name. This is a far-reaching example of the fact that the relationship between non-Indigenous Australians and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians has been shaped and is still being shaped around us every day and everywhere. Not only in Parliament, but in our schools, institutions, workplaces and social spaces, through relationships and interactions in our everyday lives through this vast country. The aim of the Rac Program is to help organisations develop a framework that will support them to play their part in advancing reconciliation, both internally and externally. RAPs do this by supporting organisations to formalise and develop actions, strategies and measurable targets that build respectful relationships and creates opportunities with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and between them and the wider community. While we all have a part to play, universities occupy a particularly critical sphere of influence that presents a huge opportunity and also a responsibility to advance reconciliation. Universities provide learning and sharing opportunities, increase employment prospects, and create brighter futures for all students, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, and non-Indigenous. Universities develop new knowledge and encourage innovative thinking, which are necessary to create a society that is more inclusive, participatory, and equal. And universities play a pivotal role in advancing social change by fostering alternative visions of what a society can be, and by bringing those visions into being. Since the commencement of the Rac Program, more than 20 universities around Australia have made a commitment to create and realise their vision for reconciliation. 10 years ago, Curtin University became the first Australian teaching and research institution to join the Rac community. And last year, Swinburne set a new benchmark by becoming the first university to obtain and elevate the highest level of Rac. Through your Innovate Rac, you have outlined plans to improve on existing relationships with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, to build on your respect for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, knowledges and histories, and to strengthen opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and organisations. I congratulate the University of Queensland for the important work you've already done to advance reconciliation, through important initiatives such as the Joseph Croft Indigenous Award and the 2012 review of higher education outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I look very forward to learning what more the university achieves through the implementation of your Rac. Together, in workplaces and classrooms across the nation, we are making progress towards becoming a just, equitable and reconciled nation. Reconciliation Australia's biennial national research study of attitudes and perceptions towards reconciliation is called the Australian Reconciliation Barometer. This barometer maps progress across the 5 dimensions of reconciliation: race relations, equality and equity, institutional integrity, historical acceptance and unity. The most recent barometer in 2016 found that almost all of us view the relationship between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and non-Indigenous Australians as important. It found that the majority of Australians maintain positive attitudes towards reconciliation. However, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's experiences of prejudice continue to increase in workplaces, shops and law enforcement settings. And there remain misunderstandings within the wider Australian community about the Aboriginal and Torres Strait, about the causes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander inequity and inequality. Our research shows that Australia still has a distance to go if we are to fully heal the wounds of the past and to build a reconciled future. Efforts to do so should include the establishment of a voice to Parliament and a Makarrata Commission to supervise treaty making and truth-telling about our shared history. And while Australia has a ways to go, our RAP impact measurement research proves that RAPs play a pivotal role in driving real and positive change in Australia in all areas, including employment, education and procurement. In 2018, in 2016-17, RAP organisations across the country procured more than $265 million of goods and services from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses. They made more than $28 million in charitable donations to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations, put more than 121,000 employees through cultural learning, and invested more than $23 million in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students through education scholarships. The report also shows that people working within organisations with a RAP have a higher trust and lower prejudice. They have more pride in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, and they value Australia's diversity. Once again, it's a pleasure to be here today to celebrate the launch of the Queensland University Innovate RAP, and I welcome you to the RAP community, and I look forward to your greater achievements toward a shared vision for equitable and reconciled Australia. Congratulations and respect.
Thank you, Kenny, and I do acknowledge at this point too the support and ongoing support that we've had from Reconciliation Australia in the final phases, particularly in finalising our RAP, and that we rely on and anticipate Reconciliation Australia following up with us on our barometer for University of Queensland as we document the change process. I would now like to introduce Mr. Kev Carmody, Aboriginal singer-songwriter and also a CQ alumnus, and Miss Rihanna Patrick, Torres Strait Islander journalist and also UQ alumnus. Thank you, Kenny. I'll say that again. And we're excited that we will have Kev and also Rihanna talk about how they see the RAP at UQ and what it will mean for students being past students. So I'll now invite Kev up to the stage briefly. While Kev's coming up, I'll say that he is, for many, a music icon. He's been politically active for a long time. People would often find him at a Greenpeace rally or a fundraiser or a world music celebration, an Aboriginal music festival, a university campus, or just playing at regular concert venues. And amongst all of this, he found time to study, undertake a diploma of education. He also has an honorary doctorate from University of Southern Queensland. Welcome, Kev.
Thank you, Bronwyn. I just got this bookie up here because it looks good. You'd swear there was bloody notes in it, wouldn't you? There's none. Look, I just feel so empowered and emotional. I would like to say thank you so much for the Welcome to Country. For a start, Kenny, your work and the outline that you did, fantastic. I'd like to pay my tribute, of course, to the elders past and present here at this place. But like to see all these faces here is unbelievable. I can see one sitting right there that was on the TV the other night, who was a student running around here. It's just like amazing to see the progress that's happened at this place. And it's all because of people working together and getting to know each other instead of standing on that side of the bloody fence and this side of the fence. We were so lucky in a way. In fact, I think we might be able to get one of the people that really helped us. There was four of us that were sort of postgraduate students, so they leaned on us as being the black fellas that did all the talking, you know. And the thing I found, that was Lila Watson, it was Mary Graham, Ribna Green from the Kimberley, and myself. You know, Sandra, we fought, didn't we? And like, it was just such a big thing for me to come from the background of horse and cart in the 1950s. Until I was 10 years old, they, meaning my family, my black family, they hid me out for 10 years. I didn't go to school, but boy, I learned a hell of a lot. Amazing amount in that bush, being not instructed, but taught by the old mob on the droving camps, looking up at the night sky. You know, Einstein, he did pretty good, old Einstein. Yeah, he looked up at the bloody night sky. Galileo, he got himself a looking glass, polished her up, and oh, geez, I can see. They actually started to look outside themselves. And we were doing that as kids on droving camps. I was on a horse when I was 4 years old. And then I, worked, mechanisation came along, because our only mode of transport was a big old Clydesdale draft horse, massive animal that was so gentle. His being was so gentle, that old horse. Little kids could, pick burrs out of his where his fetlock was, And how did I get onto that? Oh, mechanisation. Australia changed. All of a sudden, we got real bloody smart, didn't we? That's why I've got 2 big lumps of steel up my back, and I have a bit of trouble walking. It's about 25 centimetres up my back, and they screwed it into my bone. And guess what? The bloody screws have got loose. They've had 2 goes at it. Now, I was in the welding shed for around 7 years. Believe me, we can make a bloody screw stick. But I've got to go back in, and he's going to have another go. Pull her out. But that changed from mechanisation. When we had to lump 75 to 80 kg wheat bags on our back, hundreds a day, coming up a big elevator. And we used to stack them in 32 high stacks. These wheat bags. And then that changed over to bulk handling, this big new innovation. Oh boy, what it did was it cut bloody labour out. We had to reskill, my friends. They didn't want that skill no more. They didn't want us droving. They had big trucks now that they took the cattle around, and they made the lanes we had to take the cattle down were 10 cricket pitches wide. And cockies got real, how would you say? Oh, they were, anyway, they wanted that bit of land, so they brought the lanes into that wide so you couldn't take 1,000 head of cattle down, so didn't want that. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is we've reskilled ourselves at least about 3 times. I wound up in the welding sheds, sticking bits of metal together. And I tried to get an apprenticeship. Nah, you're black. No go you, mate. Tried to get a bloody fitters and turners bloody apprenticeship. Nah. But guess what? My old music teacher said, gee, you're at a... Because I studied music of a night time. Instead of watching TV, I just loved the sound of classical music. We heard the ABC when we were on the droving camps, looking up at the night sky and the universe. We could hear Beethoven, we could hear Chopin, we could hear... You name it. We could even hear Slim Dusty. It was a whole world outside us we heard on the radio. Anyway, I studied classical music. How do you put notes together and little fly specks here and they make sounds like this and all that. And she said, if you went to this institute out here, you'd you're miles ahead of what they require as a bloody entrance thing. And so I went out in my overalls on my little old motorbike with a guitar strapped on the back, and I did an audition, and they said, we haven't got a classical guitar teacher of the standard that we require, but you can do this thing called history and geography, and a third of your course can be music. Oh, okay, better than a welding shed. I'll give her a go. And that's how I wound up on probation for 12 months. See, I was bloody illiterate, my friends. I was illiterate. And the biggest thing I found coming to university was the language. See, my background's Bundjalung, that's grandmother's language. That's northern New South Wales. And old grandfather born in the bush before the turn of the 20th century. He's Lama Lama, Cape York, right up there, see. But when I come to the university, I had to learn new language. It was all isms and it was all ologies. Yeah, bloody hell, didn't know a thing. And I didn't want to go and tell the lecturer I didn't know how to get a book out of a library. I'd never been to a bloody library. I'd never read a book. But I learnt just by watching how they went down, they pulled a little drawer out and it had A on it. Okay, oh, and they got a card out. Then they went over to this, bloody hell, because I didn't want to tell a lecturer because I thought they'd kick me out because I was too dumb, because I didn't know how to get a book out of the library. Anyway, that's not what I was supposed to talk about. But let me say, I am so proud. I'm so proud. Just looking at all these faces here, because there was bugger all of us here, Sandra. You'd know Sandra when we first come here. Bloody hell. Like 1981, mate. Remember sitting down here with Professor Watts. She taught education when I was doing the diploma. She had 280 students in front of her, and she said, I've asked this question. She walked out first lecture. I've asked this question for 12 years now. Is there any Aboriginal, because she used to be in charge of the Aboriginal health worker, the Aboriginal child at school. That was the journals they used to put out. I've asked this for 12 years, is there any Aboriginal students in this lecture theatre? I was the only bloody one. And she was so pleased that she actually, because she used to teach, she's teaching about blackfellas, okay? That they were teaching about us and who we were and who our identity was. But we did change it. Yeah, we said who we were. Oh, we've done the 5 minutes. Okay, hooray. We'll see you later on. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Kev. And for people who have booked this afternoon, we have In Conversation with Kev Carmody in the UQ Art Museum this afternoon after lunch, and that's going to be really great. You'll hear more stories from Kev then. I do want to introduce Rhiannon Patrick, and Rhiannon is also, as I said, a UQ alumnus. She's had an esteemed career so far, and she's got a long way to go yet in her career. She has a double major in journalism, and while she's was studying, she worked at 4AAA Indigenous radio station as the breakfast announcer, and people in this room may remember her in that role. She's had many other roles. I follow her on Twitter and a whole lot of other things and watch everything she does, and I'm sure other people here too do. She's also hosted Stories on Her Way, Radio National's Indigenous Arts, and a whole lot more things. Please welcome Rhiannon to the stage.
Thanks, Bronwyn. If you don't follow Bronwyn on Twitter, you totally should. I just want to acknowledge Auntie down the front here. Thank you for your welcome. As a Torres Strait Islander woman, I am also here on country and a guest as well. I want to acknowledge Uncle Kenny here, who is family on my grandfather's side. And I'd also want to acknowledge any elders, past, present, and also emerging, as well as any of those Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander graduates in the room as well from UQ. I chose UQ because my mother was a graduate of UQ, and there was no way that I was never, ever going to attend UQ. It took my sister a little longer to get on with the program, and she's a recent graduate of UQ as well. But coming to a university like this was very daunting, and being one of the few people of colour in a journalism class was, I can't even say what it was like, but the support that I had from the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander unit here was absolutely amazing. And to be honest, I don't think I would have got through without that staff. I wouldn't have got through with those students. And it was kind of an interesting situation where I was not only getting a formal education of what I wanted my career to be, but I was also getting an informal education from the students that I met here along the way. The Shane Coggills of the world, the Cindy Tysons of the world, the Christine Wattigos, the Bonnie Egmalises, the Davises, all the Davises, and they really taught me a lot about black politics in Australia, about black culture, but also life and history and our place in that. So I felt like I was getting two streams of education while I was here. And I'd want to acknowledge those people who came before me, who opened those doors, who allowed me to be here and to be able to study. I know that that's an opportunity I wouldn't have had without those people who came before me fighting for that right. And, you know, the importance of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander studies units, as well as the study stream itself, cannot go ignored, because it was one of the things that gave me pride in my culture, pride in who I was, but also it gave me a connection to people who really got me through and made sure that I graduated. And there was a lot of students who I would have conversations with, particularly a lot of the mature age students, who helped me on my journey to understand my place in it, but also what I needed to do in order to graduate, and then my place in the world beyond this place. Things have changed. I don't think back in the day we would have had anything like this. A flag-raising ceremony was something that we only dreamed of as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander UQ students. And I mean, at that time when I was here, there was also a Black literature course which was taught by an amazing lecturer. And I wonder now that if that course hadn't been taken away, what that would look like today with the amount of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander authors and just literature in general for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And this reconciliation journey is about acknowledging the past, but also moving forward. And I hope that the next 20 years that we really see the Reconciliation Action Plan give real and meaningful relationships and input into campus life, the curriculum here, and also the culture here at UQ. Thank you.
Thank you, Rihanna. And just hearing from the stories from the alumni gives people a deeper sense of the university past, and I acknowledge those students that are here today now, who are current students of UQ. Hearing those stories, I hope that inspires you to keep going with your studies and finish. And we have the Sashing Ceremony tonight celebrating those students who are graduating in the next fortnight here at UQ too. So great time for us for the University of Queensland. I'm now going to invite Professor Peter Hoyt, who is our Vice-Chancellor and President of the University of Queensland, up to the podium. We've had our welcome to country. We've acknowledged elders and the dignitaries in the audience in terms of people who are Indigenous alumnus, Indigenous alumni, current students. It's now time too to hear from the dignitaries of the university. And so I invite Peter to come up to the podium. Peter's had a long history of involvement in some of the reconciliation activities in Australia, and has been a driving force around our Reconciliation Action Plan Committee and getting our RAP up and approved through Senate. So welcome, Peter Hoyt.
Thanks, Bronwyn. It's great to have you here, and thanks to all of you for coming. It's great to have you here. And of course, thanks, Gaja Carey, for your warm welcome to country. I too acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land on which UQ stands and respect their ongoing connections with country and culture. I, of course, also extend my respect to elders and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, particularly those in the room today or watching from our Gatton and Hurston campuses. It's also great for me today to have my boss here, Mr. Peter Varghese, AO, the Chancellor of the University, and other members of our Senate. Their presence indicates the much wider support for our RAP throughout UQ up to the highest levels. I have many of my senior colleagues here, but most importantly, we have you. Thank you very much for coming. I also see that our Deputy Chancellor is here. Thank you very much for coming, Deputy Chancellor. Bronwyn, your introduction was most welcome, and I thank you for it. You know, this today has been a long time coming, but it's been worth the wait. We can now work towards addressing the legacies of the past and make a substantial and ongoing contribution to reconciliation. At least that's what I hope. Our RAP will provide us with a formal framework for building respectful relationships between Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander and non-Indigenous peoples, and the collaboratively developed set of actions that are outlined in our RAP will help us to meaningfully engage, learn, and work better with each other. Building these strong relationships is incredibly important to UQ. It's how we build and expand the body of knowledge that creates change and advances ideas to benefit the world. It's been a great privilege for me to serve as a co-chair of the UQ RAP Steering Committee, the Gaja Carey Charlton, and of course to work also with the other members of the committee, which included Dr. Sel Hodge, AM, a Senate member, and of course Bronwyn Fredericks as our Pro Vice Chancellor, Indigenous engagement, Shane Drum and Linnell Angus from the Office of the Pro Vice Chancellor, but also Torres Strait Islander Representative Walter Wire, and very importantly to me, Guri Barimpa, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Student Collective representatives, Tion Seddon and David Corporal, Lachlan Bond and Connor Haddad. I just saw David and Tion here today, and they were just such impressive contributors to our deliberations. Outstanding people. And earlier this year, Mandy and I were also invited to the NIDOC Ball that I think Tioni was sort of a head organizer of. And it was just the most uplifting experience I've had at my time at UQ, because I actually saw an enormous amount of people of Indigenous background being so impressive. It blew us away. And I thank you very much for showing that leadership. It has actually probably been the highlight of my year. And I have many things that could be labelled highlights. So I thank you, students. You are the future, and we're here to support you. You know, the efforts that we have were well rewarded. You can see by the publication on your seats that we are here officially today, finally, to launch our RAP. But just before we move to that, there are just two more things I want to do. One is a very uplifting one, and the other one can be seen as self-indulgent, but it's not meant to be. But very firstly, I'm delighted to advise that we have commissioned 2 artists to create UQ's reconciliation artwork. This artwork will be displayed prominently at our 3 campuses, and it will be used to represent and support reconciliation and Indigenous activities and initiatives at UQ. It will be reproduced across a wide range of formats, both physical and digital, and it will be included in the university's corporate style guidelines. And before I call to the stage the winning artist, I do want to say that I was involved in the early discussions about this artwork, and I realized I could add no value at all. So I withdrew and said, you know, come up with something great, and we'll make sure that we can afford it. So I'm as intrigued as you are, but having said all that, may I now call to the stage Ms. Casey Coolwell and Ms. Kira Mangtalo from Chabu Aboriginal Art, Home Decor and Graphic Design. Do something great, right? Thanks, Karen. Looking forward to seeing what you're coming up with. Wonderful. We're really looking forward to seeing that. Casey is Quandamuka Nunakal woman from Minjerribah, North Stradbroke Island, with links to the Yolo, or Yulo, and the Biri people of Bowen. And Kyra is a Quandamuka Yellow and the Biri people, Nuji woman from Morgumpin, Moreton Island, with links to Yulo. I would have done this better in Danish, I apologise. And the Biri people of Bowen. Both are accomplished artists with expertise in graphic design, painting and sculpture, and the production of clothing and home accessories. You can view some examples of the work after this event at the reconciliation camp outside on the deck. Congratulations to you, Casey and Kyra, and welcome to UQ. And I was supposed to present the flowers right now, but you got them. So despite people saying we move slowly at UQ, sometimes we're surprised, so thank you very much. My second announcement is of a more personal nature. I've long been committed to partnering with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people. I've always believed that acknowledging history and recognising past wrongs ensures that we as a nation can move forward with greater harmony and equality and opportunity. And I've travelled on this journey before. Prior to my role here at University of Queensland, I was the Vice-Chancellor at University of South Australia, and it was the first university in the country to make a formal commitment to reconciliation, and there I helped instigate the production of its inaugural RAP, which of course is already in place. I'm aware that equality is often hard to achieve and that education is a key to change. So in this spirit, I'm very proud to announce the establishment of a UQ Indigenous Student Scholarship. As part of our campaign, the Not If But When campaign to create change, I personally pledged sufficient funds to create a substantially endowed accommodation scholarship to support Indigenous students pursuing the studies at UQ. And there should be enough funds in that for that to be present in perpetuity. Well, thank you. Thank you. And colleagues, it's very easy to do. You just dial up HR and you say every time that you get your salary, do you want the money to go to the ATO or towards an Indigenous scholarship? And of course, that's very easy for a Vice-Chancellor to say because I'm extremely lucky in how people look after me. So since arriving in Australia from my native Denmark many years ago, I have admired and learned from our country's Indigenous peoples in the Queensland community, throughout Australia, and certainly on the UQ campuses. My aim for this scholarship is to support the next generation of Indigenous students working to create change in their communities and, of course, in our world. I hope many other people, as fortunate as me, not many people are not as fortunate as me, will follow me to build a sufficient number of scholarships for Indigenous students to really move the needle in this country. And I thank you in anticipation for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I now officially launch the University of Queensland's Reconciliation Action Plan and call upon our Chancellor Peter Verghese, our Pro-Vice Chancellor Indigenous Engagement Professor Bronwyn Fredericks, and traditional custodian and Elder Garja Carey Charlton, who of course was the co-chair and the person who really knew what we was trying to do. I thank you again, Garja, to come forward for placing the hands of acknowledgement. Thank you.
Who wants to shake my hand in reconciliation?
just said, because they're going to put something in the middle. We wanted to reserve the middle part, didn't we? Excellent.
Two left hands and two right hands. It can't be better.
All right, they want to take a photo of us
All right. Okay.
before we...
Oh, like that.
Yep, got it?
You got it?
While we've got our hands up, we'll just do another wave to Hurston and Gatton. Hey, everyone. Okay, so just walk.
Okay.
Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, Gudger, just go. You can go behind there. And,
What do we do now?
Go behind that screen and wash your hands.
I'm deeply committed to reconciliation and recognise that relationships, respect and opportunities underpin progress to reconciliation. For our research activity, practical actions are critical for driving our contribution to reconciliation, both within the university and with the communities that we operate within. Some of our actions will be an annual education series. Through our research week, we will gather together researchers with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and organisations to co-develop research questions for us to collaborate on. And our other action will be an online bank of stories showcasing best practice in collaboration.
What I would do for reconciliation at UQ is I would continuously work in both capacities as a student and a staff member to build a visibly inclusive and a progressively thriving environment for Indigenous people, whether that be my fellow students or my fellow colleagues as a staff member.
I have been nominated to be part of this committee by previous PBC, Cindy Shannon, and I have been on the committee since. It's good to note that this committee had come into play in the university to use as a mechanism to ensure the interests of Torres Strait Islanders are identified.
I think there's a real unique opportunity for the University of Queensland, given that the Torres Strait communities lie wholly and solely within the state jurisdiction of Queensland. So UQ, being a G8 university, is uniquely situated. It's the only G8 university within Queensland, so it's uniquely situated to and should rightfully play an integral part in working towards and assisting the Torres Strait Island goal of becoming self-governing people.
Well, what I would like to do to make reconciliation work here at the Gatton campus is to create something that's physical and tangible and something that people can see and engage with. And the sort of thing that I've been thinking about is either a piece of artwork or a garden or even a cultural walk with some interpretive signage. And that way it's something that all the staff and students and visitors to the campus will be able to see, engage with, and we can have a conversation then about what reconciliation means and pay tribute to our First Peoples heritage.
What I will do is I'm going to go ahead and push forward for another Indigenous trainee to come into the vet science industry. It's hasn't been done before. I am the first one, so I am really proud to make that stepping stone and go ahead and push for another one to come in and give them support and try to keep that as a foundation and keep going forward later on.
The Faculty of Medicine is committed to improving health outcomes of Indigenous Australians through our teaching and research. The Reconciliation Action Plan provides us with a mechanism by which we can increase the number of Indigenous staff and students in our programs, and also work to improve the cultural competency of our staff. Here on the Hurston campus, we'll work with our partners at the Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital and the Queensland Institute of Medical Research with their reconciliation action plans to again improve the outcomes for Indigenous Australians through research and clinical practice.
As an Aboriginal woman, the fact that the institution that I work within has expressed very public, sincere and genuine commitment to improving the relationships between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people is an important statement to make. And I think at one level, reconciliation action plans can be symbolic, but there are action plans, and I know, having been part of this process for some time now, that there has been a long and thorough process that engaged staff members across the institution, beyond the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies Unit, beyond the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff, to forge this commitment. And for me, having this plan in place says that the institution cares about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and that it's prepared to take some responsibility for improving the outcomes for our mob and not leave it in the hands of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people only.
Great video, huh? So it is official, we have launched the University of Queensland's Reconciliation Action Plan, and we have shared a commitment of making reconciliation happen here at the University of Queensland with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students, staff and community members for increased outcomes for Indigenous higher education, but also partnerships through engagement, through partnerships and collaboration and research, and all the aspects of work that University of Queensland is engaged in. We know that we have an exciting and challenging time ahead, and a bit like really the ebbs and flows of Meanjin and Maiwar down there. And Gudger Kerry spoke about, you know, this country and your country, or this place. For people that don't know, Maiwar is the Brisbane River, and she moves along up and down, you know, ebbs and flows, sometimes crashing quite violently in storms and other times softly caressing. The reconciliation ride is going to be like that. Sometimes it's going to be tough. Sometimes myself and the Office of the Pro-Vice-Chancellor Indigenous Engagement will question and ask people why they're doing things. And sometimes we'll be going, yay, they did it, fantastic, we're coming to help you celebrate. So it is going to be hard. It's going to be fantastic at the same time. But I commend the University of Queensland for taking the path, the journey. I also want us to look around and look at the purple everywhere, whether you're in Hurston, Gatton, or here on the St Lucia campus, and the banners that are at the front, create your change. The Reconciliation Action Plan is about us not just creating your change, it's about us creating our change for Team UQ. So the Reconciliation Action Plan is launched. When we see the artwork, we'll be celebrating. When you see the purple getting about, I want you to start to think about creating change in education and curriculum and learning and teaching. Think about how you're making change, creating the UQ change for reconciliation. Thank you. I now am going to invite people to share in some hospitality with us, to have some discussion, to listen to a performance by Kev Carmody a bit later, and to have a walk around the displays outside and just spend some time talking, thinking, reflecting, and also celebrating. Thank you everybody for coming along today, for community members for making the journey to come out here to celebrate with us, for the past alumni, and Kev made mention of Associate Professor Sandra Phillips. Sandra sent me a photo recently, just in the last week, of 30 years ago, probably this week, of Indigenous alumni celebrating with a cake their graduations, and we're doing that tonight again. So lots of things to talk about and celebrate. Thank you all for celebrating with us today. Thank you.